Okay, so today is the 6th of March, 2022, and we'll pay homages to two architects. The first one, Guarino Guarini, the second one, none other than Michelangelo Buonarroti, who was born on this day. So let's read a little bit about Guarino Guarini. That is, if my laptop, my old laptop, is allowing me to properly do this. So Camillo Guarino Guarini was born on the 17th of January, but died on the 6th of March, 1683. He was an Italian architect of the Piedmontese Baroque, active in Turin as well as Sicily, France, and Portugal. He was a Theatine priest, mathematician, and writer. What a beautiful conjunction of preoccupations: a priest, a mathematician, and a writer. Truly a great architect. But I should have had something is wrong here. His picture is not shown. Anyway, we begin with some drawings by Guarino Guarini. The Guarini stereotomy. He was a mathematician. He was very scrupulous and very coherent in his representations. He applied his mathematical skills to the art of building, and which even by today's standards is amazing. And you are going to see the examples. This is a sophisticated geometrical activity, and applied to to the factuality of erecting very important buildings. So he was a Baroque architect from we could say, the school of Turin or Torino. The Baroque there was somehow different from the Baroque in Rome, for example, not to speak about the Baroque from other countries. So these are just graphic representations of some of his works, but we are going to see the buildings. Some of these, like this is an engraving, was probably done. I'm not sure if it was done during his lifetime. Anyway, please remember the name, Guarino Guarini. San Filippo Neri, which was completed by Juvara, another very important architect. This is the plan. I hope I have, yeah, I still have, I'm still showing drawings. Here is the building, a church, of course, quite rich, and the Baroque made that richness even more obvious. Unfortunately, I'm not sure if this was the taste. It's hard for me to believe, because you will see his specific architecture that made Guarino Guarini is not like this. This is almost neoclassic. So I don't know who did this front elevation. It almost seems as if it was added in front of the building, which is behind. It's possible. The interior also shows a different spirit, but this the front elevation alarms me with its so-called classical or classicist convictions. Anyway, I am rushing a little bit because we have a lot of material to show, and it's not just Guarino Guarini, but also Michelangelo. Maybe I will talk about Michelangelo in his 4 aspects: architecture, drawing, sculpture, and painting. But for now, we are still looking at Guarino Guarini. Collegio dei Nobili, also in Torino or Turin, 1678. I like the Guarino Guarini was able to give to the facades of his buildings a vibration, because look, it's almost an embroidered facade. And he worked also with bricks, which is not so common, you know, especially for large buildings. So his elevations have a sensitivity, which in my opinion is very particular. Look at this, you know, yes, it's almost an impressionistic weaving of the bricks. It's embroidered, I call it so. It's an embroidered facade, and this is just a detail, but I think it shows a very specific sensitivity. Also, the ornament that he employed is remarkable. I don't know what is happening now in this palace. This is an old picture and it's romantically faded. But again, it bothers me this. I guess this building is right across the street from the previous one that we saw, the church. They are both, yes, they are neighbors. Now, the chapel of the Holy Shroud from 1668 to 1694 in Turin. Now, look at this incredible, you know, roofing system. It's almost modern, you know, and it was done. I mean, this cupola, this dome, is typical work of Guarino Guarini. You had to be a great mathematician to be able to make this work. Besides being clearly, aesthetically very, you know, very skillful. I mean, all these parts that work together in order to create a meaningful whole. It's almost astounding. He was famous for his domes, and here we have an example, which are very original, very sound, structurally, you know, very, very convincing, and also aesthetically beautiful. So yes, even from the outside, you see that this is Baroque, and this Turin Baroque architecture is exemplified by Guarino Guarini in sublime ways. The plan is very simple, but look at what is happening, you know, when you look upwards. It's formidable, actually. Yes, Guarino Guarini was without doubt one of the greatest Baroque architects. And this is just one of his works. We are going to see others. Guarino Guarini's invention of the Passion capitals in the Chapel of the Holy Shroud in Turin. I'm not going to read this. Apparently, he also invented or created a capital derived from the Corinthian capital. It's here. Sorry for the resolution of the picture. But, you know, if one needs to you know, study in depth this, you know, for example, this is a website that where you can read about his invention in this field. Now, the Royal Church of San Lorenzo, also in Turin. And look at this again. It's very vigorous. It's very sensitive. It stands. It's structural, but it's also beautiful. It's also ornamental, so to speak. So the domes of Guarino Guarini are splendid. And there is almost something, I don't know exactly why I have this feeling. Maybe it's not so difficult to verbalize about it, that there is somehow an Islamic, a Muslim influence here, although it's a Christian building, of course. But, you know, the way he made these domes, you know, and then these rotations here where you have, you know, that's how you get an octagon. You know, you have a square and then you take a square with the same side and rotate it at 45 degrees. And here you get the octagon. And the symbolism of the octagon is very rich. You have the octagon here also. So it's sophisticated, yet not abstruse geometry. It's both simple and complex. These were and are great buildings. You know, I mean, any city would be very happy to have such a building part of its you know, treasures. Look at the you know, the again, I cannot avoid the word embroidered. There is this aspect of the way he brought together the parts. Yeah, the castle of Raconigi, it's a palace. I see though here again, I only hope this is not by him, because it looks kind of strange even here. I don't know what to think. I don't know enough about him to know for sure that that belongs to him. But my wish is that it's not by him. Another palace, Palazzo Carignano. Again, here we see his ability to intricately weave with small elements, be they bricks or whatever, a whole facade. Yes, to weave it. (1679) Turin. Another religious building, Santuario della Consolata in Turin. I hope to arrive sooner, more soon, to the domes, because the domes, in my opinion, are his most splendid works. I don't know who did this, you know, I don't think he was in charge with all the artworks and the details that we see here. Chiesa dei Padri Somaschi in Messina. There are many books on Guarino Guarini, even on individual buildings like this one, for example. Chiesa della Santissima Annunziata, also in Messina. Now, to my intuition and my understanding, this is more like a, you know, an elevation by, even though it's incomplete, by maybe it was also damaged during the war, is possible. Now, Chiesa di Santa Maria in Araceli in Vicenza, Vicenza, the city of Palladio. But we see Guarino Guarini building. I don't know, Araceli, I guess it's either a suburb or you know, in the province of Vicenza, not directly in Vicenza, the building. The ellipse, which is so dear to Baroque sensibility. The circle also appears. Think about it. This man was a monk, was a mathematician, was a writer. So, you know, he was combining various interests, but the spiritual side of human existence was, you know, extremely important, something we cannot say any longer in our lives and in our activities. Even who is talking about the spirituality of architecture today? Not many. Other images from his work, I still think, and it's not me, others wrote books about it. The domes of Guarino Guarini are the most personal and the most impressive parts of his work. And again, the way he embroiders, the way he weaves small elements that culminate into a majestic dome, is this ability to, and also through abstractness, through abstract means. You see, what we look at here is almost like a peacock's tail, and again, can you divorce structure from ornament? I don't think you can. They come together, the structure and the ornament, as they should. The structure becomes ornamental and the ornament becomes structural. So Guarini was born 208 years. No, he died 208 years after Michelangelo was born. Michelangelo was born in 1475, and 208 years later, Guarini died. So there is a certain distance in time between Michelangelo and Guarino Guarini. I mean, even as a drawing, this requires a lot of knowledge and a lot of skill. But to transform the drawing into a building is altogether much more complicated and difficult, and he did it. I mean, this is the capital that he evolved from or arrived at from the Corinthian. And we see this is the Passion capital, referring to the, the crown, the painful crown of Jesus. It moves me, the work of the restoring people, the people who work to, to preserve these jewels, architectonic jewels. I wonder what this architect and other architects like him felt when they were working on such a project. I mean, they were working for God, literally, for the house of God. And I don't think they could have done this without faith. I mean, it's splendid, you know, it's structurally sound and at the same time beautiful, at the same time ornamental and beautiful. Here he is. He should have been at the beginning, but it's good that at least we can take a look at him. Now we don't know. Sometimes these engravings or etchings are done years after the person died, but we can presume that I guess he kind of looked like this, Guarino Guarini. He also wrote, as we read at the beginning, he was also a writer, meaning a thinker, and also a mathematician, and also a monk, and of course, a great architect. I think such architects are inspiring, you know, because you see the weavings of spirit here. That's what we look at here, you know, mathematics, pure thought, ideal. Um, they dedicated their lives to this, and he that's what he did. He also did this palace, you know, a little bit different from some other works. I like more his buildings in red, meaning with bricks, than his whitish buildings, or the whitish parts of his buildings, like this. You see the the skin of the building is like a woven sweater, you know, you can tell it's almost a textile work because of the way he employed these bricks. Now I don't know what kind of brick they used, I mean, you know, this is a building older than 300 years, and you see the brick is not covered, is not protected. You know, how did it last like this? Because the climate in Torino is in Turin is not very different from our climate. So I don't know. They didn't feel the need to cover the brick with anything. Okay, so that was it. An imperfect presentation. I'm unhappy with this presentation. I should make for the next year another one, but that's what I was able to have today. Now we go to Michelangelo. What should I do? I'm a little bit tired of architecture, to be honest with you. So let's start with the drawings of Michelangelo, since today is his birthday. Okay, Michelangelo drawings. I mean, we can talk about a whole day, if not more than a day, just about his drawings, about his poems, about his sculptures, about his paintings, about his architecture. This man did everything. He was divine, so to speak, and he was considered as such. Everything he did was, you know, sheer genius. In his case, I think we shouldn't have any doubt about using this word, genius. He drew beautifully, and he was a man, you know, continuously, you know, in search for something. Should we call that something God? I don't know. I don't know very well, neither in his case nor in the case of Leonardo da Vinci, what his faith was. He was a Renaissance man, you know, emancipated man, the emancipated man, but he had some, I think he also had great disposition towards feeling guilty. If we consider the, you know, the Last Judgment that he painted so brilliantly, but we'll arrive there because I'll also show his paintings. And now we just look at drawings, tension, fight, struggle. I think his understanding of life was kind of like this, that, you know, there is a tremendous, you know, energy in his drawings. I mean, you look here on the left, you know, is the fight between a man, be him Hercules or whoever, and you know, a lion. Maybe this was, you know, Michelangelo himself fighting not with a real lion, but with his own limits and with his awareness that he is limited. I think he was very, very self-critical and very demanding on himself. He was probably searching, he was trying through all this incredible activity to save himself from some kind of a primordial guilt or something. You know, he worked like a man possessed. He had a long life, as opposed to Leonardo, who died at 66, I think, and not to speak about Raphael, who died at 37. You know, the greatest names in Italian Renaissance. He lived a long life, but he was active until the very end. Portrait of Michelangelo. Now we see a portrait done by this person, Daniele Ricciarelli da Volterra, a portrait of Michelangelo in 1550. So at that time he was 75 years old. He was not a happy man. Michelangelo was not a happy man. Although considering the brilliance of his works, he should have had some reasons for some, for some happiness, I would say, but he was not. He was continuously pushing the limits for himself. He was not an architect, he was a sculptor. But this sculptor who didn't have a lot of, maybe affection for painting, still produced some of the most amazing paintings the world has ever known. And that is the Sistine Chapel. And then, he was not an architect, yet he produced remarkable buildings. He was not a poet, and yet he produced remarkable poems. But we see even here, it's this incredible turmoil, it's the beast that is tormented and tormenting. And I think the beast, there was something of the beast, a psychological beast within himself. Otherwise, why would he be interested in such scenes that he depicted through impeccable drawings? And almost all his graphic works, and not only graphic, are about conflict, about tension, about tremendous energy spent to fight with the real or imagined demons. Beautiful drawings. But look at the expression here, the bottom. This is a tormented human being, governed by terror, inner terror. Great artist. If he doesn't inspire us, I don't know who could. Totally devoted to his art, totally. I wonder if Michelangelo lived today, how would his work, I mean, could we conceive of a Michelangelo of the present? What kind of a person he would have been if he lived today? What kind of work he would have done? Now, I know that Frank Gehry was inspired by Bernini, another great artist, well, from the Baroque period. But I don't know. I mean, maybe we idealize the Renaissance, we idealize the Titans of that time. It's possible we have greatness in our time too. But when I look at the drawings, if we compare the drawings of Michelangelo with even the drawings of Bernini with the drawings of Frank Gehry, we do see a great change. It's true, we have cameras today, we have all kinds of gadgets. We don't have to draw like this. We don't have to make sculptures like Michelangelo did. We don't have to, we have access to the visual world through all kinds of technological, mechanisms. So the literal depiction of reality doesn't have to be done through drawing. But maybe Goethe was right. We only see what we draw. I don't know if you take pictures of something with a camera, is the same, if it is the same thing. Okay, so now I will show, this was with drawings. I will show also his paintings. Michelangelo, painter. So again, today is his birthday, March 6th. Now, the works he did in the Sistine Chapel are really somehow, you know, people should ask if these were not done by extraterrestrials. But there are interesting things. You know this very well, this fresco, the, you know, giving birth to Adam by God, who is on the right. But what is very strange here, and I never found an answer to this, is who is this woman that God has his left arm around? Because Eva or Eve was created after Adam. So this depicts the birth of Adam, the creation of Adam. So Eva or Eve didn't exist at that time because she was made from a bone of Adam. So who is this woman? Because she is a woman, she's not an angel. I asked myself this question and I did some research. I couldn't find an answer. She seems to be created. Some people saw in this as being an image of the brain, somehow like a cross section, a section through the brain. But again, who is this woman? And obviously she is in our, maybe, you know, you could say she's the thought of Eve. But somehow this explanation is not standing, or is not sufficient. Anyway, and she looks, I hope I have a detail here, she looks rather worried about the creation of Adam. So it's possible Michelangelo wanted to express his disdain, his own questioning about the greatness of creating man. Whoever she is a mysterious being. And I asked once someone who was very knowledgeable about the Bible, and she's a believer, and she said, this is sacrilegious. You know, who could this woman be? Already created at the time when Adam was giving birth to. I hope I have a more detailed pictures of that, but I tried already to explain my questions about that famous scene depicted by Michelangelo. Brancusi accused Michelangelo as, you know, his sculptures being, you know, if I remember correctly, and I think I do, of, you know, being sculptures of beefsteaks. And it's true that the bodies depicted by Michelangelo, both in his sculptures and in his paintings, are voluminous and rather, you know, inflated, that there is a lot of flesh. It's true, it is so, but I think we could look at it also, you know, metaphorically. Anyway, it is a tremendous work. You probably know that after he died, another pope came to power, and he hired someone to cover the nudity of some of the characters depicted by Michelangelo, because you see, he was not shy to show the human body as the human body is, without any kind of covering. But the pudicity of the new pope, you know, made some of his figures be covered. Like you see, you know, certain, well, this maybe was done digitally, but there was a painter, I forgot his name, who came afterwards and began to cover, you know, certain parts of, you know, the bodies that Michelangelo depicted. Now, do you know who this is here? If we are to call this a person, it's Michelangelo himself. He depicted himself in this doomed condition, you know, truly like a doomed being. So he was very judgmental towards himself. This is Christ, very muscular indeed. Maybe, I mean, Brancusi had a point And he was not the only one, I'm sure. Anybody can look at the muscular depiction of. But again, this is about myth, is about going beyond actually the factuality of drawing. He wanted to show in mythical terms, in ahistorical terms, these bodies which were above life in a way. Now here you see the covering of certain parts of these characters. This was not the work of Michelangelo. This came afterwards. Anyway, it was done. But it is the whole drama of human life depicted here on the ceiling, and not just on the ceiling. It's everything. And unless you have a good knowledge of the Bible, you cannot comprehend the complexity of the narration. That, I mean, these are, characters from the Bible depicted in their specificity, in the, yes, the biblical specificity. I don't have that knowledge. I'm a terrible reader of the Bible. But here is Michelangelo. The experts and everybody thinks that this was a self-portrait. He depicted himself as a doomed man, and doomed he looks. A scene from hell. That hell existed within Michelangelo himself, no doubt. He was not a happy man. With all his incredible attributes and qualities, he was far from being a happy man. And look there, I had been there. It's inhuman, it's suprahuman, it's extraterrestrial. How could a man do something like this? It's all the human drama. This is the equivalent of the greatest works in any field. The Ode of Joy by Beethoven. It's the whole humanity is here. It's beyond Christianity. It's beyond the Renaissance. It belongs to all times and all places. Yes, it was commissioned by the Christian Church, by the Vatican, but it's really about all of us. And this was a man who didn't consider himself a painter, if you can believe it. The most moving, in my opinion, is the Last Judgment, which is here. But everything, the ceiling included, of course. Look, this is the ceiling. It's literally a fresco that depicts the human drama since it began and until the future. If we said until the present, would not be enough. Even the terrible drama that takes place today in Ukraine, indirectly, implicitly, is depicted here. As you know, this has been restored. Some people criticized. There is always, when you do something, doesn't matter what and doesn't matter how you do it, there will always be someone who would have something negative to say. I guess they had to be restored, and maybe some colors were not chosen properly. The blue was questioned. Anyway, a single man, Michelangelo, did this amazing work. Think about the conception of this, and then to implement it. It's a visual. It's a representation, a visual material that makes the Bible an image, a global image. And there are no words here, but the word of the Bible is externalized through images. All the prophets, everything that is in the Bible finds its place pictorially in the work that he painted. And he was not a painter. Again, here you can see better. So who is this woman? I don't think this is an unimportant question. Who is he, she? She cannot be Eva. And look at her face. She looks worried that God gives life, creates Adam. And in my opinion, she had all the reasons to be worried, because man can destroy the earth and life on the earth. But who is she? I thought she might be the thought of Eve. But then Eve, this was not in the character of Eva to be, because Eva represents the domesticated woman. Even the fact that she was created from the bone of Adam is like a second-class being or creature. I don't think any man would have loved to be made from a bone of Eva. So in my opinion, this shows clearly the sexism involved in the making of the Bible. I know what I'm saying is not religiously correct, because we think it's the word of God, but I think it's the word of male theologians who made the woman kind of like a, poor relative of humanity. She was created from the bone of the male. Why? This clearly placed the woman from the very beginning in a secondary role. But Michelangelo had a different idea. For Michelangelo, whoever this woman was, in his imagination and in what he depicted, she was created before Adam. That's why that person I consulted said this is sacrilegious. It's not sacrilegious. In my opinion, the Bible is sacrilegious because it places the woman in an inferior position, and she shouldn't be placed in an inferior position. Look at her expression. She's worried. This was not done by accident by Michelangelo. No, it's a message Michelangelo sends us through this. Anyway, everything is brilliant. I mean, it's not that, I am using a cliche. No, it is brilliant. It's a tremendous work. I mean, look just at the expression, just to paint that face. Forget about the hand and everything else. And this is just a tiny detail, Now, I don't know if you know, but before Eva, apparently there was another woman, the primordial woman, and maybe it's not an accident that Michelangelo depicted the snake as having the top part as being actually a woman, the wild woman, Lilith. Her name was Lilith. And she was the woman who was in a way the opposite of Eva. Eva accepted to be a second-rate human being born from the bone of Adam. Lilith was the wild woman, the woman who would not accept to be born from the bone of the man and become the kitchen being Eva. No, Lilith was the wild woman, was nature in its undomesticated being. I don't know exactly if Michelangelo, I don't know if he had such knowledge, but again, isn't it interesting that Michelangelo depicted the snake as a woman, actually, another woman, not Eva. I think it's very interesting. Here are the, I mean, just, you know, if I would have painted just this and I would have considered myself, you know, worthy of being alive, and just these two hands, the hand of God and the hand of Adam. Amazing work. Now, I talked about this, the self-portrait as the skin of Saint Bartholomew in the Last Judgment. I don't know, actually, I should know, and I should read about Saint Bartholomew. Why did Michelangelo depict himself as the skin of Saint Bartholomew? And here it is. I'm almost sure that it's something in the biography of Saint Bartholomew that made Michelangelo depict himself, you know, as the skin of Saint Bartholomew, just the skin. Clearly, like a doomed man. And I'm sure, and his poems, I read a few of his poems, Michelangelo felt of himself as being doomed. Look at the expression. He was the very opposite of our, you know, stars of today, the happy-go-lucky faces of successful artists and architects and so on. You know, how many you know, artists and architects of today, having the success that, you know, Michelangelo had, would have depicted themselves in this way. He probably had a great guilt within. He felt guilty. Okay, so now let's go to sculpture. My God, I don't believe it. I go through all of this, but I would feel guilty myself if I didn't at least talk about him as a sculptor. I don't know if I will talk about him as an architect, because I talked about him as an architect 3 weeks ago, but let's at least talk about him as a sculptor. And he considered himself mainly a sculptor. Michelangelo, sculptor. I begin with his earliest works. These are not commonly associated with Michelangelo, but apparently he did them. Michelangelo, sculptor in bronze. Whatever the medium he chose as a sculptor, he was brilliant. Moses, a work which I had seen, is in a church in Rome, and it's, what can we say? Imagine that this was a rough rock, a rough stone, a rough marble that became what we look at. Just imagine, just try to imagine this. If you can. With all my ambitions, I could never imagine I could carve a stone to arrive at something like this. Just look at this hand here, you know, with the veins. I mean, it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. This is stone. You know, he had to carve this stone, a block of marble, to arrive at this. You know, it's literally almost impossible to conceive how he did this. Now it's true. If I am to express a certain you know, question mark, is, but maybe I'm wrong, you know, and I hope I'm wrong. Somehow I feel that, I don't know, maybe I'm very childish now, but I feel that this muscle of this arm seems to me a little bit problematic for some reason, and particularly this, but maybe because I don't have such muscles and I am envious of Moses. Maybe, let's hope it is so. But otherwise, everything is absolutely, it's out of this world, really, because this is stone. David, you know, David, it's huge. It's not a small David. I mean, he was small compared to Goliath, but Michelangelo depicted him as a triumphant man. Some people think that Ukraine is like David, opposing the Goliath of Russia now, and that David will win. Let's hope it will. But look again, look just at the hand and the veins with blood in them. You almost feel as if blood is circulating through the stone in this amazing hand. And look at the expression of Adam. Again, marble. You know, now you see the scale of the sculpture of the statue by Michelangelo in the vicinity of a human being like us. It's big. It's very big. And here are other humans like us, you know, cleaning up this, you know, quintessential work of the Renaissance. And it actually moves me, you know, that you know, other human beings over the centuries bring their equipment with them and they begin to clean up the amazing work by one of the greatest, if not the greatest. Some think that he was the greatest artist ever. But you realize here the scale of the, you know, the scale of this statue. I don't even know how did he find a rock, a stone so big? I mean, you know, this is 4 times, it's 8 meters or so. It's huge. You know, the Latins say ars longa, vita brevis. Art is long, life is short. You know, this picture kind of go with this saying, although there are people like Levi-Strauss who said, no, life is long and art is short. But here, actually, you know, metaphorically, but also in terms of dimensions, art is long, is tall, and life is shorter. But we need each other, you know, and it moves me a lot, you know, the fact that centuries later, these people who should receive our affection in as much as Michelangelo clean up the statue with great care and attention. Bravo to them. Look at this hand, you know, it's alive, but it's stone. It is stone. Now this man, you know, he showed every vein, you know, and how did he do it? I mean, his knowledge of the human anatomy was impeccable. Now, of course, there are other critics, especially from our time, who saw, you know, the homosexual in David. L'idéal parfait de l'homme ou de le homosexuel. The question, the perfect ideal of the man or of a homosexual, because of the back. You know, that apparently, you know, the back of David incited some people to think that, you know, the alleged homosexuality of Michelangelo found, you know, a rather explicit manifestation. I don't know. I mean, is it important? In my opinion, it's not so important, but it's true that, you know, there is a certain voluptuousness and sensuality in the way he depicted the back of David that would make some people think that Michelangelo, as sexy as it gets here. I found these are not my words. These are the words of whoever wrote articles and, you know, criticism and so on. Michelangelo, as sexy as it gets. Okay, now let's move forward, because this is a copy in Piazza della Signoria in Florence is not the original inside the Museum of the Accademia, I think it's called. Here we see the original with many tourists from all over the world before the pandemic, but I'm sure even after the pandemic, it will be the same. It is one of the quintessential artworks of the world ever. Pietà, another great work. I mean, what I do here is just an aide-memoire of the masterpieces of Michelangelo, like an invitation if you are interested to further study, because his work is tremendous and extremely complex and vast. The deposition. He depicted himself here, apparently, in this group. Who was this man, Michelangelo? You know, who was he? You know, what kind of a human being he was? He was a human being like us, you know, but what animated him? What thoughts? What feelings? What motivated him to create such works? Rondanini Pietà, another important work by him, although it's unfinished, but maybe it's even more moving because it appears more modern, just like his slaves, which we are going to see towards the end. It's a beautiful work, even like this, unfinished as it is. But I don't know if he left it intentionally like this. Somehow it makes me think of the Cumințenia Pământului by Brâncuș. It has this primeval archetypal quality, just as it is. Another great work by Michelangelo. I don't know the circumstances. I don't know if he left it like this intentionally or for some other reasons. The Dying Slave. He did other works with slaves, and we are going to see them. Very, very moving. Now, it's true that the flesh in his sculptures, being as they are in stone, the flesh has a certain, you know, it's obvious, you know. I would understand why why Brâncuș underlined the fleshiness of his sculptures. The rebellious slave, even the fact that he attacked the subject, the slavery, the slave, rather often, he probably considered himself to be a slave. He was himself trapped within his own terribilità, within his own suffering and understanding of the human tragedy and human, you know, the human limits. The prisoners or the slaves, which are at the Accademia Gallery in Florence, are beautiful, although they are unfinished. I think they are magnificent as they are. You know, they show the struggle between the you know, the living, the human body, and the stone they emerge from. Yes, I think Michelangelo thought of himself as being a prisoner. And here they are, you know, moving towards David in the Academy Gallery, or the yes, where the David is displayed. On the way, you pass by these prisoner or slaves, unfinished sculptures by Michelangelo, which I like very much. So these sculptures are almost 500 years old, almost half a thousand years old. But you know, the modernity of these unfinished sculptures is striking. What a tremendous work! What a tremendous effort that these men made to bring out of the stone these figures. And here we see the process, we see the becoming of the sculpture. Happy birthday, Michelangelo Buonarroti. You didn't die. And here they are, you know, the 6 slaves in order of completion, you know, but they are incomplete except the last 2. But the first 4, awakening, Atlas, young and beard, and then rebellious and dying. Those are the only ones that are finished. The first 4 from left to right are not. So I guess when I look at Atlas, all the heaviness of the world was on his shoulders, or so he felt or thought. But you see a struggle in all of them. There is a struggle, and the struggle of these 6 slaves, in fact, the slaves are himself. He was the slaves in all these hypotheses, these you know, manifestations, awakening, Atlas, young, bearded, rebellious, and dying. In all of them, it was Michelangelo. That's it. So let's wish him happy birthday. And with this, I end this presentation, this commemorative presentation on about this formidable artist.